A ver, entonces te digo la pregunta que es, how does the level of urbanization ranging from smaller towns to large cities shape the development of skills in child or teenagers? Um, so
Okay.
basically, we're gonna focus a bit on this podcast on how children are raised, their culture, the level of urbanization, especially a bit of how violence influences this urbanization levels and development skills in teenagers. So, how do you think the environment in which a child grows up influence their skill development?
Um, well, I think the the level of urbanization um, shapes a lot the development of skills in children and teenagers. For example, um, when I was a kid, I lived in a small town, and I think um, my skills are pretty different from the skills of um, some of the people I know that lived in bigger cities. Um, for example, I think the way I communicate with people is a little different. Um, I'm more used to knowing um, more the people, and I think when you're in a bigger city, you have more like an individual type of way of like seeing things. I don't know what you think about it.
Yes, I think so too. So I live like in a small city, but it's still a city, and I think it's a bit different uh, about the way that you like communicate it with people and like your bond with them. Because although it's a small city and you still like see each other, the people you know everywhere, um, you have a lot more connections with like other people from diverse cities or countries or whatever, but they are like um, more, how do I say, like they come here to the city and it's a bit more populated, so like it's very diverse in that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there are many factors that influence like teenager developments, like the independence. One of them like being raised in an urban setting compared to a small town. The skills that we mentioned and like the skills that they develop are like very different. I think that in big cities it's a bit more independently in the way they like move around the city, like maybe the transportation, and maybe I think in smaller towns it's a bit closer, so that how the way they move is a bit different too. So like, what do you think about this? How does like living in a large city versus small town influences a bit more on how you develop?
Uh, well, yeah, I completely agree with what you said. Um, for example, well, most of my life, like I said, I've lived in a smaller town, and um, I also lived for a little bit in a bigger city, and I think that I had to develop more skills. Like um, I had to know how to take the buses, take the trains. I had to like talk to more people, um, and I just had to do more. Like I had a different type of interactions with people. For example, in my smaller town, I used to just know everybody and go talk to them. Like if I had to um, go to the market or I don't know, buy bread.
Mhm.
Like I already knew the workers. They knew me since I was a kid, and my the type of interactions were different when I was in the city. For example, when I went to the supermarket, I had no idea who um, the person who was working there was, and um, yeah, I think it changes a lot, like the skills you have, and like you said, people from bigger cities have like a more independent way, and people from smaller towns they tend to see things in a more like collectivist way. And yeah, what do you what are your experiences like?
So for me, my experiences are a bit, well, maybe similar, but I lived my whole life in this small city in Quito. So yeah, I think because it's a bit small, the interactions may be a bit closer with the people that live there. But when I went to live in another country, which they have obviously a really big city, it was very different because, as you say, like the people you used to know from like a supermarket or like um, friends, you don't tend to see on the streets or like on the supermarkets. You don't know much people, so the interactions are very different in that way. But like for you, when you lived outside in a much like bigger city, did you see like the culture they had was very different to yours, or was a bit similar in the sense of like how children are independent?
um well, I think it was pretty different. uh it was also like it was a big change because well, I'm from Costa Rica, and I was in a small town in Costa Rica, and when I went to a big city, it was in Germany, that I was in Munich. So, well, the language was different. The culture, like itself, was different. But um, seeing it in um, like a small city, a small town, and big city, like I think the little kids also, like I saw a lot of them just being more independent, going to take the train, take the bus. For example, where I lived, I would just walk to my high school and walk to my middle school, and all that. I was really, really close to my school. So, yeah, I think it was really different. And I think there are positive things about both of them. For example, um, like living in a smaller town, like it made me have some really good relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
I have some really strong bonds, and if you are from a bigger city, I think you learn how to like communicate with different people. Um, and yeah, I think like both things are really good, and yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there are like many positive aspects from like living both in a smaller town or like big city. And for example, you used to live and I live in a Latin American country, and I think the development of skills in a Latin American country is a bit different on like the world in general, especially because of violence. So how do you think like how Latin American countries influence greatly in a setting of violence? So like, how does violence maybe influence you on how you act, or how you like, how is your lifestyle in a smaller town or big city?
Yeah. Well, I think it does influence a lot. For example, well, in the small town that I lived, like, um, it was honestly pretty safe. Like, close to that small town, there were like more dangerous places, but I also knew everybody, so it was a little different. But like, for example, in Costa Rica, whenever I go to like different places, I usually walk like, I'm more careful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try not to go to like the dangerous places. I try not to go out like late at night, and I just try to avoid a lot of things. And like, for example, when I went to Munich, like, I saw that people were like really calm. Like, they would go out like at midnight, past midnight, and they would be like really calm. Like,
Yes.
they wouldn't feel like, yeah, they wouldn't be scared to go out. Like, in my country, I honestly, like, I would never go out like that late unless it was like I was completely sure that it was like a really safe place. But yeah, I think the violence, like, it's a big factor. Um, yeah, I don't know how it would be in Quito, in Ecuador.
Mm-hmm. Well, here, because it's still a city, it's a bit different. So basically, um, I live like in a, not in the center of Quito, but a bit far away from like the
Hmm.
center where everything is like um, really big. But the violence is a bit like everywhere. So the thing is that right now, with everything going on in the country, like violence has very much increased. So now,
Hmm.
like when we go out, we try to like eh, not walk on the streets at night, or like in the morning alone. Don't tend to like have your phone out or any like type of technology out. For example, right now Apple Pay like is now available in the country, and
Yeah,
it's not a good idea to put it on your phone because they can like steal it and steal all your like information, like all your money and that kind of stuff. So yeah, basically you don't know where violence is, so you have to be careful all the time. Like I when I go out at night, my parents come to pick me up, like both of them sometimes, because it's a bit scary to go alone at night. And
yeah.
we just right now came out of toque de queda from
Hmm.
like everything that's been going on with the president and the drug cartels here. So right now it's a bit calm, but yeah, it's basically we have to like adapt and live with that. Just be careful everywhere you go. It's best not to walk anywhere.
Yeah. So you told me that you live in Barcelona for like a year, right?
Yes,
And that was like a bigger city than Quito,
yes,
was it?
it was a bigger city, and for example, for violence, as you said, in Germany, it was so different. Like here, you're always careful, and then like there, even if it was like a big city, um, it was a lot calmer. So people like you felt more safe. You could walk at night alone and nothing like happened. You still had to be careful with like some smaller parts of the city that might be like a bit dangerous, but besides that, like you were a it was a very different lifestyle than I think right now. For example, here where I
Yes.
live.
Yes. Yeah, I remember because I also went to Barcelona for like a week um, last year, and